Think about it. From thrashing out the details of a huge business merger
Yeah.
to just figuring out who gets the last slice of pizza. Negotiation is just woven into, like, our daily
It
lives.
really is.
And let's be honest, it often feels more like a tug of war, doesn't it?
Right.
Than a genuine attempt to find common ground.
Indeed. But what if you could navigate those tricky situations with maybe more confidence and end up with agreements that truly work for everyone without feeling like you've constantly had to, give in?
Well, that's precisely the territory we're exploring today. We're taking a deep dive into a real cornerstone of the field. Getting to Yes, Negotiating Agreement Without Giving In by Roger Fisher and William Orey.
Ah, a classic.
Absolutely. This book has resonated with millions worldwide.
Huh?
I mean, over 15 million copies sold, translated into tons of languages since '81, plus those updated editions.
And its enduring appeal, it really underscores the power of its central idea.
Yeah.
That there's a more thoughtful and, frankly, more effective path to negotiation than just battling over entrenched positions.
Yeah, exactly. And for you, the listener, consider this your express lane. We're going to break down the essential strategies from getting to yes.
Okay.
So you can approach your next negotiation, whether it's, I don't know, a make or break business deal or just deciding family vacation plans, with a clear and powerful framework.
Great.
Our goal today is really to equip you with the tools to reach smart agreements, without feeling like you've had to surrender your own interests.
Precisely. We'll be focusing on the 4 fundamental principles at the heart of this approach. Principled negotiation.
Okay.
And the incredibly useful concept of your BATE-TNA, your best alternative to a negotiated agreement.
Right. BTNA. We'll definitely unpack that.
And also some smart ways to handle those moments when, let's face it, the other side isn't exactly playing by the same rules.
Okay, let's get into it. The core of getting to yes revolves around these 4 key principles for what they call principled negotiation. The first one is separate the people from the problem. Now, on the surface, that sounds straightforward, right? But what does it really look like in action?
Well, it gets at a really crucial point.
Yeah.
Every negotiation has, 2 dimensions. There's the substance, the issue you're trying to resolve, and then there's the relationship between the people involved. And these can become incredibly tangled.
Oh, yeah.
And often that entanglement makes it much harder to find a good solution. So this principle is about consciously disentangling those 2 threads.
Okay.
So you can tackle the problem head on without, hopefully, damaging the underlying relationship.
So it's about being firm on the actual issues, the substance, but without being sort of abrasive or disrespectful towards the other person.
Exactly. The book really drills down on this. It looks at managing perceptions, handling emotions, and fostering clear communication.
Okay, perceptions first. How does that work?
Well, a key insight is the power of perspective taking, genuinely trying to see things from the other side's point of view, putting yourself in their shoes.
Sounds simple.
It does. But it's surprisingly easy to overlook when you're really focused on your own goals.
It really is. You can get so locked into your own viewpoint that you don't even, stop to consider why the other person might see things differently.
And that's where so many negotiations just go off the rails. The authors stress the importance of actually discussing each other's perceptions.
Talking about how you each see it.
Yes. To clear up misunderstandings and, crucially, assumptions. They also caution against something psychologists call the fundamental attribution error.
Okay, what's that?
It's the tendency to think the other person's behavior is down to their character, they're just being difficult, while explaining your own behavior based on the situation. Well, I had no choice.
Ah, right. So we blame them, but excuse ourselves.
Pretty much. So instead of assuming bad intentions, try to understand the pressures and constraints they might be facing.
So shift from they're being deliberately obstructive to maybe what challenges are they actually dealing with?
Precisely. And on the flip side, a smart negotiator will frame their own proposals in a way that resonates with the other side's values and interests.
How so?
Maybe even offering them a way to feel like they've achieved a positive outcome. Or, as the book puts it, allowing them to save face. Very important.
Interesting. Okay, what about emotions? Negotiations can definitely stir up some strong feelings.
Oh, absolutely can. And this principle emphasizes recognizing and understanding emotions, both your own and the other parties.
Just acknowledging them.
There's real power in it. Just acknowledging that emotions are at play, even stating it openly, like, I can see this is frustrating, can help diffuse tension.
Rather than ignoring it.
Exactly. Ignoring someone's emotions can just escalate things, can it?
Yeah.
Allowing the other side to sort of vent their feelings without interruption can also be incredibly valuable. Even if you don't agree with the substance of their emotion, just letting them get it out.
Letting them be heard.
Right. And crucially, the book advises against reacting emotionally yourself. That's hard, but important.
Don't get sucked in.
Exactly. Instead, it suggests using symbolic gestures, maybe a sincere apology if appropriate, or just a moment of empathy to de-escalate those strong feelings. It's like acknowledging the human side before getting back to the problem.
That sounds like a way to lower the temperature in a potentially, volatile situation.
Yeah.
Finally, for this principle, how does effective communication tie in?
Well, it's about truly engaging with what the other person is saying through active listening.
Not just waiting for your turn to speak.
Exactly that. Acknowledging their points shows you've heard them, even if you don't agree. And the book recommends speaking clearly, directly, focusing on your own perspective using I statements. So, I'm concerned about this deadline, you're not meeting your deadlines. Less blaming.
Right, less accusatory.
And ultimately, communicating with a clear purpose, keeping the focus on resolving the issue, not getting sidetracked by personal grievances or old history.
Okay, so principle 1. Consciously separate the human element, the emotions, the relationships, the perceptions, from the actual problem you're trying to solve together.
Nailed it.
Got it. Now let's move on to principle 2. Focus on interests, not positions. This sounds like a really key distinction.
It is absolutely fundamental. Think of positions as the specific solutions people demand their stated wants.
Like, I want a 10% discount.
Exactly. Interests, on the other hand, are the underlying reasons behind those positions, the needs, desires, concerns, even fears that are driving those demands.
Can you give us another example? Maybe not the library window one everyone knows.
Sure. Let's take that company negotiating with a supplier again.
Like
the company's position is, we need a 10% price reduction. That's their stated demand.
Okay.
But if you dig into their interests, you might find their underlying need is actually to reduce their overall production costs to stay competitive in the market. It's broader than just the price.
Right.
Now, the supplier's position might be, we can only offer a 2% reduction. Their interest might be to maintain profit margins to reinvest in, say, R&D.
Okay, different underlying needs.
Exactly. So once you understand those underlying interests, the buyer needing lower overall costs, the seller needing profit for R&D, you can start exploring alternative solutions beyond just haggling over that percentage.
Like what?
Well, maybe the supplier could offer a longer-term contract at a slightly lower price. That gives the buyer cost savings over time and the seller guaranteed business.
Wow. Oh.
Or perhaps they could explore different materials or processes that lower the supplier's own costs, allowing for a bigger price cut without sacrificing their margin needs.
Ah, I see. So by looking beyond what each side is saying they want and focusing on why they want it, you open up a much wider range of potential agreements. It's not just about splitting the difference on the price.
Precisely. Often, multiple different positions, different solutions can satisfy the same underlying interest. So the crucial question becomes, how do you actually uncover these hidden interests in a negotiation?
Right. It's not like people usually lay out all their deepest needs right at the start, do they? What are some practical ways to dig deeper?
Well, the book suggests asking open-ended why questions. When someone states a position, just ask, why is that important to you? Or what leads you to that position, to understand their reasoning.
Just asking why.
Simple but powerful. Conversely, if someone proposes a solution you don't like, asking why not can help reveal their underlying concerns or the obstacles they see.
Okay.
It's also vital to remember that each side usually has a multitude of interests, not just one. Some might be shared, others might conflict.
And identifying those shared interests seems like a great way to build common ground, right? Find something you both want.
Absolutely. And, many underlying interests connect to very basic human needs, things like security, financial well-being, a sense of belonging or respect, recognition, feeling in control.
The fundamentals.
Yeah. Thinking about these fundamental drivers can provide really profound insights into what's truly important to the other side. The book even recommends making a conscious effort to list out the interests.
Like actually write them down.
Yeah, both yours and what you think the other side's might be. It helps clarify these underlying motivations before you get too locked into positions.
So it's not enough just to know your own interests. You have to actively try to understand and even articulate the other side's interests as part of the problem you're jointly trying to solve.
Precisely. And the principle emphasizes clearly communicating your own interests not as demands, but as needs or concerns, and acknowledging the legitimacy of the other side's interests.
So both sides understand the why behind the what.
Exactly. When that happens, finding a mutually beneficial how becomes much, much more likely.
Okay, that's a powerful shift in perspective. Moving on to principle 3. Invent options for mutual gain. This is where the creative problem solving really comes into play, right? Brainstorming time.
Exactly. Once you have a better grasp of the underlying interests on both sides, the next crucial step is to brainstorm a diverse range of potential solutions options that could address those interests.
But people often get stuck here, don't they?
They do. There are some common mental roadblocks that often stifle this creative process.
Like what? What stops people from coming up with innovative solutions in a negotiation?
Well, one major hurdle is premature judgment.
Shooting ideas down too quickly.
Right. The tendency to immediately evaluate and critique ideas as soon as they're suggested, it just shuts down creative thinking. Another is searching for that single right answer instead of exploring a wider landscape of possibilities.
Thinking there's only one solution.
Yeah. And the ingrained assumption of a fixed pie, the belief that there's a limited amount of value, so any gain for me must be a loss for you. That's a huge obstacle.
The win-lose mentality.
Exactly. And finally, just a lack of focus on the other party's needs, thinking, their problems aren't my concern. That severely limits your ability to find solutions that actually benefit everyone.
Right. If you're only narrowly focused on your own desired outcome, you might miss opportunities to create new value or find sort of unconventional solutions that could satisfy everyone. So how do we break through these barriers? How do we generate those mutually beneficial options?
Brainstorming effectively is key, and the book strongly advocates for separating the invention phase from the evaluation phase. Critically important.
So generate first, judge later.
Absolutely. During brainstorming, the goal is just to generate as many ideas as possible without any criticism or judgment. Think of it as a judgment-free zone. All ideas, even seemingly wild ones, are welcome. Quantity over initial quality at this stage.
Get everything out on the table.
Precisely. You also want to consciously try to broaden the scope of options you're considering. Don't just look for the obvious or incremental tweaks.
Think bigger.
Yeah. Actively seek out shared interests that could lead to mutual gains, and think creatively about how differing interests can be dovetailed.
Dovetailed. What does that mean?
It's where each party values different things that can be exchanged or combined in a way that creates value for both. Like maybe one side cares more about timing, the other more about cost.
Trading things that are low cost for you but high value for them, and vice versa.
Exactly. The principle also emphasizes inventing ways to make it easy for the other party to say yes.
How do you do that?
Maybe framing the agreement in a way that clearly meets their stated needs, addresses their specific concerns, or aligns with their values, make it a win for them too.
Okay.
And in many situations, brainstorming with the other side can be incredibly productive. It fosters a sense of collaboration.
Interesting. It's a real shift, isn't it? From viewing the other party as an adversary to seeing them as like a potential partner in problem solving.
Precisely. The core insight here is that differences in interests aren't necessarily bad. They can actually be the catalyst for creating more valuable and sustainable agreements where each party gets what they value most.
Okay, we've reached the final principle. Use fair standards. Principle 4. This sounds like it's about moving away from just opinions and grounding the negotiation in something objective.
That's exactly the idea. Objective criteria provide a framework for resolving disagreements based on principles, fairness, legitimacy, rather than just on who has more power or who can push harder.
What counts as these fair standards or objective criteria? Can you give some examples?
Sure, there's a wide range. Market value is a common one.
Right.
Established legal precedents, relevant scientific findings or data, recognized professional standards.
Industry benchmarks.
Absolutely. Applicable laws or regulations, opinions from impartial experts, fair procedures that both parties agree on beforehand, all these can serve as objective criteria.
The key seems to be that both sides can reasonably accept them as legitimate and relevant.
That's the core of it. It takes the personal element out of it to some extent.
So instead of just arguing about a price based on what each side feels is right.
Yeah, I think it's worth this. Well, I think it's worth that cycle.
You look at what comparable things have actually sold for, or what an independent valuation says.
Precisely. And to effectively apply this principle, the book suggests framing each contested issue as a joint search for these objective criteria.
How do you?
Instead of just stating your position on price, you might ask the other side, what data or market information are you using to justify that price? It opens up a discussion about the relevant standards themselves.
It's about shifting the focus of the argument from my opinion versus your opinion to what do the objective facts suggest is a fair outcome.
Exactly. And agreeing on the guiding principles or benchmarks before you delve into specific terms can be incredibly helpful. It sets a foundation of fairness.
Prevents later disputes, maybe.
Hopefully. And it's crucial to remain open to a reasoned discussion about which standards are most appropriate and how they should be applied. You might find different standards point to different outcomes, and the negotiation then becomes about agreeing on which standard is most relevant or how to interpret it fairly.
And the book emphasizes not yielding to pressure tactics here, right? Only to arguments based on these agreed-upon standards.
Correct. You yield to principle, not pressure. It's about anchoring the negotiation in fairness and objectivity, which makes the outcome feel less arbitrary and more legitimate, more durable for both sides.
These 4 principles: separate people problem, focus on interests, invent options, use fair standards. Wow, that's a really robust framework. But the book also places a lot of emphasis on understanding your BTNA.
Oh, yes, BTNA, crucial.
What exactly is BTNA, and why is it such a game changer?
Right. BTNA, as we touched on, stands for Best Alternative to a Negotiated Agreement.
Okay.
In simple terms, it's your walk-away plan. What will you actually do if you cannot reach a satisfactory agreement in this negotiation?
Your plan B.
Exactly, your best plan B. And developing a strong BTNA is absolutely vital because it fundamentally shifts your negotiating power. It gives you a clear benchmark. You know what your alternative is, so you won't feel pressured into accepting a deal that's actually worse than what you could achieve elsewhere or on your own.
So it's more than just having a vague idea of other options.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I could maybe look elsewhere.
Oh, much more. The book lays out a specific process for developing a powerful BTNA. First, you need to brainstorm a really comprehensive list of all the actions you could realistically take if this negotiation falls through.
Everything you could possibly do instead.
Right. Then you need to rigorously evaluate each of those alternatives. Which are actually viable? Can you improve any of them? Make them more practical?
Sharpening the alternatives.
Yes. And finally, you tentatively select the most promising, most attractive option as your BTNA. The best one.
So if I'm negotiating for a new car, my BTNA might be keeping my current car for another year, or maybe exploring specific offers I've already seen from other dealerships.
Exactly. And the more appealing those alternatives are, maybe your current car is still perfectly fine, or another dealer is offering a significantly better price, the stronger your negotiating position becomes in this negotiation.
Because I'm less desperate for this particular deal.
Precisely. A more thorough assessment involves listing all potential alternatives, realistically assessing their value to you, and choosing the one that offers the highest net benefit. This also helps you define your reservation point.
Reservation point.
Your absolute bottom line. The worst deal you'd be willing to accept. Because anything worse than that is less attractive than just walking away and taking your BATNA.
That makes perfect sense. Knowing your absolute walk-away point based on a real alternative prevents you from getting sort of emotionally swept up and accepting a deal you'll regret later.
Precisely. And the book emphasizes the importance of determining your BATNA before you even sit down at the negotiating table. It's homework you have to do.
Do you tell the other side your BATNA?
Generally, no, especially if it's weak. If it's very strong, you might allude to it carefully, but just knowing it yourself is the main source of power.
Okay.
And understanding the other side's potential BTNA can also provide valuable insights into their leverage, their constraints, their priorities. What are their alternatives?
So a strong BATNA isn't just a backup plan. It's an active tool that empowers you during the negotiation itself. Gives you confidence.
Exactly. It lets you negotiate from a position of strength, knowing you have credible, attractive options if this particular deal doesn't meet your fundamental needs.
Now, while Getting to Yes champions this principled collaborative approach, the authors are realistic. They know not everyone negotiates in good faith. What advice does the book offer for dealing with challenging or even, manipulative tactics dirty tricks.
Right, they acknowledge that reality. Not all negotiators will follow these principles. So it's essential to be able to recognize and effectively counter those tricky tactics.
First step is recognizing them.
Absolutely. Just being aware that these tactics exist is half the battle. The book broadly categorizes them into 3 buckets: deliberate deception, psychological warfare, and positional pressure tactics.
Okay, can you give us some examples for each of those? What does deliberate deception look like?
Certainly. Deliberate deception could involve things like presenting outright false information or phony facts.
Lying about data.
Yes. Or misrepresenting their actual authority, saying they can agree to something when they really need approval from someone else, which is a common stalling tactic. Or making promises they have no intention of keeping.
Okay. What about psychological warfare? Sounds dramatic.
It can feel that way. It might include things like deliberately creating a stressful or uncomfortable physical environment, like putting your chair lower or in the sun.
Subtle stuff.
Or less subtle,
Yeah.
launching personal attacks or insults, or using the classic good cop, bad cop routine.
Yeah. One seems reasonable, the other makes crazy demands.
Exactly. And then there are positional pressure tactics.
What falls under that?
Things like making extreme initial demands to anchor the negotiation way off base, or escalating demands just as you think you're getting close to an agreement. Employing take it or leave it ultimatums, or using lock-in tactics where they make it seem like they're committed to a position and absolutely cannot back down, maybe by announcing it publicly. Threats, basically.
Those all sound pretty unpleasant to deal with. So what are some effective ways to counter these kinds of tactics?
Well, for deliberate deception, the key is vigilance. Be skeptical. Independently verify any information or data that seems questionable.
Do your homework.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Don't hesitate to ask direct questions about their authority. Do you have the final say on this? Maintain a healthy skepticism towards claims that just sound too good to be true.
Trust but verify.
Something like that. When facing psychological warfare, the book advises first recognize the tactic for what it is. Don't react emotionally.
Easier said than done sometimes.
It is, but try to name it. Perhaps, I notice you're raising your voice. Can we focus on the issue? And firmly refocus the conversation back on the substance, back to the principles. Not the personal attacks, not the environment.
Bring it back to interests and standards.
Exactly. And if necessary, don't hesitate to call for a break. Or even suggest reconvening another time if the tactics become too abusive. You don't have to sit there and take it.
Okay. What about those positional pressure tactics, like extreme demands or threats?
The crucial thing there is to avoid the trap of responding in kind. Don't make counter threats or equally extreme demands. That just escalates things.
So don't meet fire with fire.
Generally, no. Instead, consistently steer the conversation back to the principles we've discussed. Focus on their underlying interests. Introduce objective criteria. Ask them to justify their position based on fairness, not just power.
Keep bringing it back to principle.
Right. Emphasize that you're seeking a fair agreement based on legitimate standards, not just giving into pressure. And as always, your BATNA is key here. Be prepared to walk away if the pressure becomes coercive or the proposed terms are just unacceptable compared to your best alternative.
It sounds like even when the other side is resorting to these kinds of, well, dirty tricks, sticking to the core principles of getting to yes still provides a really strong framework for navigating the situation. You don't have to stoop to their level.
Absolutely. The book even suggests negotiating about the negotiation itself, the rules of the game.
How does that work?
If you encounter these tactics repeatedly, you can recognize what's happening, explicitly raise the issue.
Call it out.
Yeah, gently but firmly. Say something like, look, I've noticed a pattern of personal comments here. Can we agree to focus on the substance? Question the legitimacy of using such tactics when the goal should be a wise, mutually acceptable agreement.
Meta-negotiation.
Kind of. Ultimately, even when dealing with hardball negotiators, a steadfast focus on underlying interests and objective criteria offers a principled and usually a more effective path forward than getting drawn into their game.
This has been such a valuable exploration, really unpacking this classic. So just to quickly summarize, the core of getting to yes really boils down to these 4 fundamental principles. Separate the people from the problem. Focus on interests. not positions.
Crucial.
Invent options for mutual gain.
Get creative.
And use fair, objective standards.
Right.
And underpinning all of this is the critical importance of understanding and developing your BATNA, your best alternative.
Can't stress that enough.
Along with being aware of and prepared to address those challenging negotiation tactics when they pop up.
Exactly. By consciously applying these lessons, you can fundamentally change the way you approach negotiations, really, in every aspect of your life. Professional dealings, personal relationships, all of it.
It's about moving away from that competitive win-lose mindset.
Which is so often draining and counterproductive.
Towards a more collaborative approach aimed at achieving mutually beneficial and, hopefully, sustainable outcomes.
That's the goal. Wise agreements, efficiently reached, that improve rather than damage relationships.
So, for you, the listener, as you go about your day and inevitably encounter situations that require negotiation, big or small, think about this. How might consciously applying just one of these principles in your next interaction change things?
Good question.
Whether it's a significant business discussion, or maybe just deciding on project responsibilities with a colleague, or even a weekend activity with your family. Consider what might happen if you made a deliberate effort, say, just to uncover the underlying interests first, or maybe just try to identify some objective standards for a fair resolution.
Even a small shift can make a big difference.
It's a remarkably powerful framework, and like you said, even making small, conscious adjustments to your approach can lead to really significant positive changes in your ability to get to yes and, hopefully, on terms that truly work for everyone involved.